a guy put this really well, where he's like, the entire comic book industry now is the little sister making the older brother's action figures at a tea party.
Yeah. Yes.
Tell me. Do you bleed? You will.
Lend me your ears once again. These words will hit like a whirlwind. I've gathered my chips, now I'm cashing in. How come we can't find the passion?
Hey, everybody. It's Dan here with Godfo Universe, Godfo Comics, and resident Darrell.
What's up?
Man, you working from home today, it looks like?
Yeah, I work from home full time now. So it's great to be able, because I can, in between my calls, in between my stuff, I can do podcast stuff. So yeah. I do a lot of my editing, a lot of my appearances just in between the day to day.
That's whenever I get to work from home, like week on, week off usually. That's when I'm like recording music, working on the game, doing all kinds of stuff. I made the limitations that way in like no time because, you know, the average job doesn't take 40 hours a week.
If you're efficient, you're definitely right. You're definitely right. So I see that you're recording from a bunker somewhere underground, an
undisclosed location that I can't say, otherwise my work will come for me. It's my lunch break, but still, it's their client.
That's amazing.
So I'm like Edward Snowden out here. I almost said Norton.
I mean, both would apply. What even is a man?
Now the question is, was a woman?
Whoa.
No one knows.
A birthing person, you mean?
Yeah, there you go. A person who can lactate. So you saw the new DC. This is what we wanted to talk about, guys. You saw the new plan for DC, right? Phase 1 or whatever.
I did. I watched the video on it. I read up on it a little bit, and if you'll excuse my pail of vomit over here beside me, I just had to scoop that out of the camera.
But they had James Gunn himself announce it, man. Doesn't that make you excited?
I will say that was ballsy for the amount of back and forth he's doing with people on the internet, for him to get up there and be like, hey, look how excited I am. Yeah, I'm James Gunn, guys. Look at me, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. My brother was in Gilmore Girls.
You remember me from like a couple years back when I was making all those rape jokes on Twitter?
And that weird party I attended.
That we had pedo party. We don't talk about that here.
I didn't know what I could say on your podcast. You're like, the Luke brothers don't care, man.
No, we try not to. I try to provide a place where everyone can come in with their own opinions and say their piece. You know, we tend to nowadays entertainment and art is just like inundated with everything, and so you know, everybody knows where I stand. You know, and I was like, hey, I'm not a James Gunn fan at all, so.
No,
I don't care.
I'm not either.
What we talk about.
I'll be honest, man. Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2 weren't bad, but I don't ever care to watch them. Like why would I?
Yep, I agree. And I thought the first one was good. The second one was less good.
It was very long.
Yeah, and a little boring, I thought. But it was one of those things to where I didn't realize the Guardians could be interesting because I was completely like not a Guardians guy.
Yeah, the
movie did a good job. The Telltale Guardians of the Galaxy video game, even better than the movie, I thought. But then the second one was very much like it's fine. And I'm good. But I feel that way about most 95% of the Marvel movies. I don't ever watch again. They're good in the film in the theater. That's kind of it.
Well, I'm gonna say this and then save it for later, because it explains a lot. But James Gunn has to humanize characters, and that's for good and bad. But anyway, we can go back to that. So here's the list for everybody who hasn't seen it, and just to go through it, just to stay focused. Creature Commandos, I don't care.
That's the animated film?
Yeah, maybe that would have been like a cool thing in the 80s for like a week I would have gotten into as a kid.
Yeah.
But
I thought the fact that he's using Weasel again.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting. He's got that bug-eyed looking weasel on there. I'm like, you pulled him out in Suicide Squad. I see what you're doing. And he was, I think he made an appearance in Peacemaker, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I think Peacemaker, I think Cena carries a lot of that. You know?
Yeah, I agree. He carries all of it.
Yeah,
But without John Cena, that show wouldn't have worked.
No, and then the next one is Waller. Like Waller. Like the best thing about Amanda Waller is that she is all the people around her who react to her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care to see a show about her, because you couldn't do it. It'd have to be like House, where she comes in and is like, big ball energy against everybody else. No one likes her, but she's not really a character. She's just like a sounding board for every other character. Does that make sense?
I don't disagree with that at all, because she's extremely unlikable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think her name's Viola Davis. Is that her name?
Yeah, great actress.
She kills that role. She makes Waller interesting, but everything that Waller's in is just like that character is just like made to be unlikable. So like, you don't need to make an entire show about that. Also, for God's sake, please don't try to make her likable. Like, that's what's great about her.
Yeah,
don't
show us the back history. Don't humanize her. Don't do any of that.
They started to do that on Peacemaker. They introduced her gay daughter, and they started. You see what I'm saying? They already started that junk, and it's like, I'm trying to prove myself to you, Mom. Well, I just can't have you getting hurt, getting tied up with these people. I'm like, you're Amanda Waller. You're supposed to be like, put a freaking bomb in your own daughter's head.
Yeah,
listen here.
Nothing scares you and nothing stops you.
Yeah. And that's just, when they announced that, I was just like, ugh, that was a resounding wet fart. Like, no, not happy about that one.
Let me see what's next. Lanterns, or not Lanterns, Superman Legacy. I don't, it's not Henry Cavill. I don't care.
Not only is it not Henry Cavill, Dan, but he's being combative about this. Mm-hmm. Like, he's like, he said it himself, I haven't even finished writing the movie, but I'm having a great time. But you'll go to task with these internet trolls and the Snyder fans, because I don't believe they're the same,
Yeah.
But like, and you'll sit there and you're stirring the pot. So like, guys like me, who I'm not going to go on Twitter. 1, 2, I'm definitely not going to waste my life to talk to James Gunn. You know what I'm saying? 2, I'll talk about him here because this is fun. I'm talking to you. But but guys like me look and go, oh, you're responsible for me not getting what I want, Henry Cavill Superman. And in return, you're like, oh, look how great this thing is. And then I'm going to poke the bear. Like, guys like me are the ones caught in between. I don't want to watch this. No. I probably will. It's Superman. But I already am going into it with preconceived notions, and they're not positive because he's being a total prick.
Well, it's like, they're saying it's coming out July 2025. He's still writing it.
Yeah.
That's kind of ridiculous. I mean, you got tons of money and all this stuff, but it's like, man, like, that gives you a year to film it, maybe?
Yeah, that won't happen. That'll never happen, because look at Batman vs. Superman. It was advertised in I Am Legend years and years and years and years and years before that thing even came out. Which, by the way, still has some of the coolest advertisements. The Bat with the Superman logo, and then Superman with the Batman logo.
There has been no line probably in a trailer ever than "Do you bleed? You will." Like, oh, man. God,
that's so good. That's so good. Dude,
how many Batman writers wish they had written that in a comic, and maybe someone did, and I just don't know it, but I really doubt it.
And so whenever I do my little comic book show, which albeit I haven't done very often, just been so tied up doubling down on the content I'm making, but I took a song that I wrote and I sampled in, "Tell me, do you bleed? You will." It's just like, when that happened in the theater, I was just like, that scene in South Park where the Kyle's dad or whatever, or the Stan's dad, one of the two of the dads, he's just like, everywhere. Yeah. That was my wife, like, babe, get up.
Funny enough, I used to send that picture to Patrick at Legacy every time, like, he would get worried that we were putting out too much stuff. I was just sending that picture. But what about that weird, stupid Superman movie that's being written by Ta-Nehisi Coates and J.J. Abrams about like Black Superman?
Yeah. I thought that one's kind of been. I will say this: to his credit, James Gunn did draw a very distinct line and said there's going to be the DCU,
DCU.
and we're going to have the movies, the television, the animated series, and the video games all use the same people. Okay, that's cool. That's great, because now you're not going to get a different voice actor for every iteration of Batman and Superman. That's annoying, because the animated series, sometimes the voice actors will flip. Sometimes like Batman will be Superman next time. And I love some of these voice actors, but sometimes they're also very bad.
No, that's what I noticed. Is like sometimes I was watching something, I was like, Batman sounds like he should be Superman. Like this does not sound like a Batman voice.
100%. And so that's cool. You're going to get familiarity between the, you know what I'm saying, the two. And I think that using the games that's really, really cool. And then he said everything else will be Elseworlds, which I've been screaming from the sidelines, like, hey, let's just make it Elseworlds.
Make Snyderverse Elseworld.
That's fine. Reboot the universe, give us Snyderverse somewhere else. And I'll support everything you're doing but it just seems like right now is pushback. It's like, no. You that were loyal since the beginning, no. Like, this is not what you want, but guess what? You're getting it.
You guys who put us billions at the box office. Yeah. Even when Marvel was struggling to come up off the ground in the first phase or so, which I know those were successes, but I mean, these DC movies, like the Snyderverse movies, man, they were killing it. And it kind of peaked with Aquaman. Which who would have predicted an Aquaman movie would break $1 billion?
Yeah. If you look at the first 6 Marvel movies versus the first 6 DC movies, like the DC movies were making more money, and that's awesome. You know, granted the time and place was different, but the universes are different, the IPs are different, and the tone is different. You technically shouldn't make as much off of a DC film as you should a Marvel film, in my opinion. As a lifelong fan of both properties, Marvel should always attract the entire family. DC should always attract the little gothic cousin that listens to metal and cuts himself.
And dad.
That's right.
Well, and the reason I said that movie was going to be stupid is because Ta-Nehisi Coates and J.J. Abrams are both awful writers who can't finish anything they start. You could do a Black Superman great. I think there's 3 of them in the comics that are awesome, which I don't know why we weren't getting a Static Shock movie. Or Icon. We've never had Icon in anything, and Icon was fantastic. One of my favorite of that era of superheroes.
Who was the black guy that wore the metal Superman outfit in the rain?
Steel, awesome. Yeah. He was my favorite of the Supermen. He's a fantastic character. He could have been a because he's a genius, and he ends up getting celestial technology. I mean, he was stronger than Iron Man. He was smarter.
It blows my mind. You had Superman die in the DCEU.
Let's get to that, man. Let's get to that in just a second.
You could just make stuff happen.
Let's get to that. Let's get to that after we get, because we're gonna get Lanterns. He described it as True Detective esque, which I mean that's a big leap, dude. If you can match True Detective with Lanterns, I will gladly watch it, but I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah. The fact that we lost the original Lanterns writer, I don't know, man. I want a Hal Jordan Lanterns show. I want anything with the Lanterns, really. I mean, and the thing is, Zack Snyder already teased it. He already put him in.
And it looked amazing with Jon Stewart. Who's the best Lantern?
Yes.
He did that in his garage, didn't he? That one picture?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. The Authority. I gotta tell you, I don't care. Because that's the same guy that wrote The Ultimates, isn't it, or whatever, Ultimate Avengers, and that was a crash and burn. Which I'm not ripping the writer, but Paradise Lost, which they called a Game of Thrones on Wonder Woman Island. Which who cares?
No, that right there screams lesbian fiesta. I have dreaded what they're going to do, because there's always been this mystery around, wait a second, how do the Themyscirians reproduce?
They're gods, they make them. They made Nubia that way, didn't they?
Right, but in the general consensus, it's always been well, I mean, surely they've got to slip a guy in there somewhere. I mean, I don't care how you want to swing it, A plus B equals C. That's just that, you know what I'm saying? That's how children are made.
Maybe they'll answer what a woman is, Darrell.
A birthing person. We're gonna have the Themyscirian birthing people, the lactators, and the gladiators. But like, and I'm just whenever I saw that, I'm like,
Glad with 2 A's. Gladiators.
that's
Dude,
really good.
if Glad the organization started rebranding as Gladiators, that would be amazing. I'd be 100% behind it. Like,
I tell you what, this is going to be. You ever saw the movie Meet the Spartans?
Yep.
It's like high fives for the women,
Yep.
open mouth kisses for the men. That's what this is going to be. This Themyscira, the Promised Land, whatever this thing is going to be, it's going to be Meet the Spartans.
you know what's going to happen? It's not even going to be hot.
It's going to be Waller's daughter. How she became the next Wonder Woman.
She'll be Gladiator.
Oh
That'll
my
be it.
god, that's yeah.
For real, Glad the organization made a superhero named Gladiator, I would buy that comic.
I mean,
Batman Brave and the Bold, I do not care about Damian Wayne. He is the worst Robin.
he's so annoying. It's so. You could make it cool potentially, but
Yeah.
he's such a little douche
Well,
nozzle.
they're taking it from Morrison's run and from and I don't know if they're doing this, but I know Tom King is like the most recent and biggest Batman writer, and Tom King is awful. Tom King, I think that's what they're going to do with it. I think they're going to make Batman weak and effeminate and like ineffectual, and then they'll make Damian, whatever, and then they'll come together at the end. It'll be like maybe he'll probably like hug his son and love him, which is great, whatever. But I think that's what Batman Twitter loves now, is like Batman hugging Nightwing and all this stuff. And it's like, man, come on. Like, when I grew up, I remember when Nightwing's, like, when he was leaving, he punched Batman in the face, and Batman just looked at him and said, "You get one."
Yes. Yeah.
He was like, "You're the only one that gets one." Like,
That's the equivalency of "I love you" in the Bat Family. That's as good as it gets. That was peak masculinity right there. It was like, yes, son, you just remember, Daddy gave you that one.
Yeah.
Next time, I'll break your freaking neck.
that's how much he respects him too.
That's right. That's right. You know what? You know who came back, Dan? You know who came back? Nightwing. He came back.
Yep.
That's right. You
Yeah.
know why? Because Daddy didn't love him enough.
The Batman sequel, that could probably be the best out of all of this, because Gunn has nothing to do with that. I mean, that's Matt Reeves. He can do whatever he wants.
Mm-hmm. And to be fair, that movie was a good movie.
Yeah.
I think Pattinson is one of my least favorite Batman,
Mhm.
but from the neck down, it was great.
It's not my favorite Batman movie, but I would call it solid. Like, I mean, it makes me want to watch Seven whenever I see it.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. All the red in the murder mystery.
Yeah. It's the
100%.
best looking and best sounding Batman movie.
That's good. That
Yeah.
was a good film overall. I like
Yeah.
the whole plot. I like the villain. I like the arc he makes. I like the mystery of the Joker gang. You know, it was a lot of cool stuff.
I'm not going to be happy though until I see Court of Owls and or Order of Dumas, because you could get Talon and you could get Azrael, and you could have both of these forces fighting for Gotham with Batman, like a young Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I really, people, like, I just see it. So many people are clamoring for like Clayface, and I'm like, man, I don't want Clayface, man. Give me like a big stick with like the big mob kind of controlling threat.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the Court of Owls. We have not had the Court of Owls in a movie, and it's a great idea.
You should play Gotham Knights.
Yeah.
They just recently came out. There's so much Court of Owls in there, and Scott Snyder assisted in that. Oh, it's so good.
It's the best Batman villain created in probably 30 or 40 years.
Mhm.
Probably since Bane. That's what I would say. Since Bane in the 90s, the Court of Owls is probably the single best Batman villain that I think of the new ones. You could just do so much with it. You could have him beat like a Talon to death or something, or like fight him. And then, of course, he like looks up and there's like 30 of them like surrounded. You're like, ah, crap, you know, perched up top. And it's like, what a great, if people want Robin and the Bat Family, that's how you do it. You bring in Batman's fighting consistent, huge threats. He's got to set up these organizations have been incorporated for so long in Gotham. That's how you bring in Gotham Inc. or Batman Inc. That's the only way to fight it.
100%. I think that'll be awesome. But here we are. hiding in closets, podcasting about what should happen. And James Gunn's out there. Look at Waller. Look at her. Look how human she is.
The door's going to break open and Waller's going to come in here, and I got to fight Viola Davis.
And then her lesbian gladiator daughter's going to come in and put a giant spear through your heart.
It'll be Gladiator that does it. She'll be the one that kills me.
She wears a thong on her face. It's not even a whole mask. Booster Gold. I think it'd be great if Ant-Man didn't already exist. Booster Gold's gonna be played by Chris Pratt.
I mean, it could kill it. That could be like the biggest takeoff. That could be like another Peacemaker if they did it right. I mean, I'm not excited about it because my favorite memory of Booster Gold is Doomsday throwing him into the atmosphere. But he's a cool enough character for today's kind of like serial TV drama because he's kind of a loser. He's kind of funny.
Nobody liked him.
Yeah, he could be kind of cool if he did it right.
They've been flirting with that one too. Even pre-James Gunn, Booster Gold was stirring. So I think that's cool. I think that's cool.
Well, I mean, and this isn't in the list, but I mean, I'm so confused because like, we're getting a Blue Beetle movie, which could objectively be really good. Mm-hmm. It could be like Kamen Rider from Japan if they really followed like a Japanese model of doing like that kind of robot hero. That'd be really cool. I don't care about it, but it could still be cool.
Well, I'm not a huge Blue Beetle fan. I don't really know a ton about Blue Beetle. I mean, my biggest kind of interactions are through the Teen Titans and through the Injustice 2. That was really, really good. I've never read a Blue Beetle comic before. He's been in comics, you know?
Yeah, I don't think anybody's ever bought one before.
But I will say, if they make his suit anything like that old 70s or 80s film, Guyver.
Oh, the Guyver. Yeah, I love the Guyver.
With the freaking elbow blades. Oh, dude.
Like the little, especially if it's like the newer Blue Beetle, where he's like a young guy where it's like an alien mechanic and it just grows out. That's what I'm saying. If they stole so much from Japanese, like those kind of shows, like the writer shows, and Guyver, I mean, it could be really cool. Like you could get an entire young generation of fans if you really leaned into that, and then you put out like a manga, which is what which DC should do. Yeah. But they probably won't. But if they created a Blue Beetle manga from the ground up to go with this movie, yeah, they could outsell their own comics.
I mean, right now anime is so freaking popular. Not wrong.
They should do a Blue Beetle anime. That's what I was telling Josh today. I was like, they should have probably licensed this out as an anime. But
well, put it on Netflix. They did that Batman anime. You know, that was really good.
Yeah. Well, Japan knows what they're doing.
Well, I mean, they had a Joker mech. Like, what? How are you going to compete with a Joker Megazord? I mean, come on.
And Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. That's the Tom King thing. If it's anything like anything Tom King's written, I have no desire to see that ever. Like,
we asked for Man of Steel, and we got Woman of Tomorrow.
Best I can do is Supergirl.
Yeah. We want Henry Cavill, Man of Steel 2. Best I can do is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow.
Okay. Thanks.
That summed up the entire slate right there for me. Yep. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. I'm like, yeah.
I don't get the weird obsession with Tom King. Like I tried my best to do Batman, Catwoman, that run, because they always give him the best artists to work with, and then he craps all over their art with this crappy dialogue
or the lack thereof dialogue.
Yeah, and like that's what I made that collage for you with, was the Batman Superman stuff, because that art is terrific, but it's the whole thing is Batman just whining because Catwoman's sleeping with everybody but him, and
what do you think she was going to do?
Yeah, but he's just whining and crying with Alfred. It's just
and then he's with his dad. He's
Tom King is just the evolution of Joss Whedon. He's an unclever Joss Whedon, because Joss Whedon would write these terrible male characters that were subservient to female characters, but it was funny and it was good. Tom King is just, he's just he just feels like a loser. And the guy was like a Marine or something, or in the CIA or something, which should tell you enough.
Yeah, right. What's weird is the Tom King Batman run started off pretty decent, and then after the wedding, it just was. It's like he got bored. It's like he was tired. It's like, oh man, here we go. I'm going to write this whole comic book, 700 words. And after issue 50, it was like, I got 400 words, 300, 200. Here's 7 pages with nothing.
Like J.J. Abrams, you can't finish what you start, man. Like if you can't finish, if you can't deliver, like just get out of the way. Like,
yep. It's like EA. It's like EA. Just they gobble up all the licenses and they're just like, what are we going to do with this? We're just going to sit on it for 10 years. Maybe we'll put out Battlefield. Maybe we won't. I don't
know. Swamp Thing. That's the last one. Swamp Thing, which could be the greatest, which could arguably be the best comic book movie ever made if you did it right. Because Swamp Thing is amazing as a concept.
The show was pretty good.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty good. When that was on DC Universe before it was HBO Max, I thought that had a lot of potential. It had a good horror feel to it. The big reveal at the end, really showing off the potential bad guy. And you know what they did early on that one? They did the bad writing early. It was just like, hey, identify as this. Like literally, like first scene. It was like the dialogue was basically, did you know I'm that character? Okay, move on.
Hey, I'm the reason we're getting certain like checks from certain banks.
Yeah, and then it was like a couple episodes in, I was like, "Oh, don't you remember? I'm this," and it was the other. I was like, and it was outside of that, it was just like everything was good, And I'm not saying that those things can't exist because they do exist. What I'm saying is like the worst of the series was just 2 poorly written scenes where they just it was almost like they were like, "Here, let's click our boxes and move on." Outside of that, it was pretty well done.
Well, and here's the thing, like, and some guys have pointed this out, like I hate to go into identity politics briefly, but like other comic commentators that are like black or gay or what have you, have gone into great detail on this with what they call tokenization. They're like, look, if you're like, we don't want to be treated or portrayed this way. Give us Blade, give us Steel, or create a new character.
Dan, I about had a friggin' heart attack when Black Panther became a thing, and they're like, "It's a movement. It's the first black superhero." I'm like, I grew up watching Blade. Wesley Snipes freaking killed. Like, what are you talking about?
Snipes sitting in prison, like,
I know. He's like, I didn't pay my taxes for this.
Did we talk about that story? No. I forget who it was. I think it was Dave Chappelle. Like, don't quote me on that. It was Dave Chappelle or somebody. It's an interview you can find where he met Wesley Snipes. It may have been Kevin. I don't remember. Anyway, but he was like, "There's almost he's got a big check or something," and he was like, "Hey man, you got to pay taxes on that." And Wesley Snipes supposedly said, "Blade don't pay taxes."
That's so funny, dude. That's the kind of stuff like, and it just drives me insane. I'm like, wait a second, like. I love Blade. That's one of my favorite freaking characters. Like I think that almost everything I've ever encountered Blade has been stellar. I love the movies. The third one's questionable, but that was more so because of Triple H's grill, not necessarily because of that movie. And then the comic books I've read of Blade are great. The Blade Wolverine comic book was great. I mean, like Blade is awesome.
Blade the movie had probably the biggest crossover effect since Spawn, which that's a whole other topic. People do not give
another black character forgotten.
No one gives because Todd McFarlane has an ego, but no one gives that guy credit for what he did in the 90s, single-handedly creating a new character that's already a classic. And he was a classic like that because that dude understood pop culture. Anytime I'm getting him a cartoon, I'm getting him a movie, and you can you can question toys. You can question the quality of that movie, which it's okay. It holds up.
Like it.
Yeah. But that guy knew, I'm going to get this guy into the psyche of people. And that's what Blade did. People do not give Blade, the movie, enough credit as a comic book movie. It was like the first comic book movie taken super seriously by people and was a blockbuster.
Oh, dude. I remember going to the theaters and seeing Blade 1, 2, and 3 with my dad. I was and that's the thing. And that's why I guess I don't identify the problem that I have with writing these days as much is like you were saying, it's the playing identity politics and it's the tokenization of characters because I don't know if you follow Eric July.
Oh yeah. Rippaverse.
Oh my gosh. Rippaverse. I know, dude, freaking love this dude. And that is like one of the first people who ever just said it out loud. He was like, I'm a hardcore comic fan. I was following this dude when he was putting out music with his rap rock band.
Backwards.
Yeah, backwards. Yeah. Love backwards. And he's a hardcore libertarian. He's, you know what I'm saying? He's like,
He's
the dude.
everything you're told not to like.
Yes. Black. He was awesome. And he goes,
a black libertarian who's in the middle. You're not supposed to like him, otherwise you're a bad person.
Yes, 100%. He checks. He's awesome. I freaking love that dude. And I was following his comic book reviews, and then he sits back and he's like, "Dude, I don't want a token version of this. I don't want a black Superman. How about give me my own guy?"
Yep.
And he goes, "You know what? Enough's enough. I'll write my own guy.
My own guy."
I freaking love that dude.
Blade was eaten up by people who'd never read comics in their life. I'd go to any friend's house. I was the only one that read comics. They had Blade. I didn't even own like a DVD of Blade at the time, but they had 1, 2, and 3, and it was the same thing. Like 3, I don't really care for, but it's awesome because it's Blade,
right?
And they got them in. Some of them picked up the comics, but I mean that was just such a massive crossover that I don't think gets enough credit.
I agree, and it's good. And I know we're spiraling out of control from James Gunn and potential woes to where things were missed and identity politics were played. That was really that we kind of shot over there, probably unorganically, but we got there. But that's my fear with this, though. My fear is we're going to get a lot of good stuff bathed in a lot of bad stuff because I've already seen it in his films. You know what I'm saying? Like these Suicide Squad, Peacemaker was great because they identified the tropes of today. Yeah. And they made fun of it in the show.
But what's better than that? Not to circle back, but this is what I wanted to go with what we were talking about. Gunn and Rian Johnson. Gunn does better than Rian Johnson. These guys, like some of these guys just feel like they have to address things. They have to do things. Man, Snyder didn't do that. Whenever something like of this quality was in his movies, it was just there.
Yep.
It was part of it because he knew storytelling, he knew story arcs, and going back, like he didn't try to quote unquote humanize characters and bring them down. He started with humans and showed them struggling with being seen as gods.
Yes.
He didn't try to explain the human condition or the modern human condition of people. He just showed it and then elevated it. And that's what's so frustrating to me. It seems like James Gunn cannot do that. All he can do is take someone who seems bigger and tear them down and make them LOL human. Yep. Does that make sense?
I get it. And that's his slapstick writing. That's his slapstick nature. It's like everything's got to have a joke attached to it, which, like I said, in Peacemaker, it worked in Peacemaker for me because it was like, it's almost like we sat back. We know we're going to get presented with the social, political stuff of today. And the way that they did it between Gladiator and Peacemaker was through tongue in cheek and, jabs at each other. And that was funny and it worked, but it was still there.
But with that, and there's nothing, I'm not trying to go into a whole thing here and cause more trouble for you, Darrell. But here's the difference. When James Gunn, and like I said, I think a lot of this comes from like the Joss Whedon-ishness, which Joss Whedon did great things and he did terrible things. We'll go into that later. But they handle particularly melodrama through talking, even when it's funny. Snyder did it through action. Now, which one of those is more like reality of men and men of action? Well,
just depends on the era we're talking about here.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. And I think that's a key thing that we're not talking about here. That I say we are, but a lot of people aren't. And I hate to say it like this, but James Gunn feminizes male characters. And there's nothing wrong with a man embracing both sides. I mean, look at Prince and David Bowie. There are guys who can do that. But what you don't have is this hyper-masculine dude just breaking down and crying in the middle of a mission or something. You know what I mean? And like can't get over the trauma and not feeling like a man. It's like what happens is like Batman, where it's got to be beaten into him, and that's a flaw. But that's fine because that's what a character is. That's how you show a male character flaw, is that you put a wall in them, and then when their head's busted and bleeding, then they go, maybe I should walk around it. I think Snyder understood men, and Gunn does not. If I had to sum it all up,
I can't disagree with that, because I sit back and I watch both of their bodies of work, and one I'm extremely attracted to, and the other, there are good qualities about it, but I always walk away going, I'm of two minds. You know what I'm saying? With Gunn's work, I'm always of two minds, and a lot of it is because he addresses everything. He'll take something that he really wants to put out there, and he does it in humor, and so therefore it got across. Sure, I might have LOL'd, but nothing draws me back to. My dog is having a nightmare. But nothing draws me back to rewatching movies like the Snyder's movies.
What you just said was profound, but I've got to run with this. Like, it's so wholesome and sad, but like the worst thing that he could be imagining is your death. That's how much he loves you. That's how wholesome dogs are. Like,
that's over here imagining me dying in James Gunn's universe. And
you're like, hold on, man, I got to talk about comic books with my friend to this thing that loves me unconditionally.
And that's right. I'm over here talking about how much this is hurting me, and you're imagining me being hurt, and I'm like, stop.
It's like Bill Burr's like, what? Who's hurting you? He's like, he's mad that you're mad. So. It's going to be like James Gunn mauled by dog.
It's like, how did my dog get all the way across the country and eat this man? I don't know.
He found a way.
That's right. He comes back and he's got James Gunn's shoe.
He's like, is this the guy? This the guy that did it?
Show me where he hurt you.
Yes. Anyway, but no, what you just said is like that dual mindset, and that's a great way to put it, because like that's how I feel, and that started with The Last Jedi, where I was like, none of this like it doesn't land. It ping pongs. It won't even synthesize into one thing, and Snyder knew that. I'm not trying to be a Snyder fanboy over here, but that's why I like this stuff. It's like that guy started with solid ideas, and he took two different opposing forces and he bashed them together. He didn't make this amorphous blob and just like oil and water. You know what I mean? Like
Oh, I get it, man. You're speaking my language, dude. It's like we've talked about in the past, man. Just the onions, the layers that he has in his films. It's like, watch it one time, you get something. Watch it a second time, you'll get more. Watch it a third time. Watch a James Gunn film.
Yep, you're done.
You saw it. Okay, that's it. Oh, now the jokes are less funny. Now they're annoying.
Well, some early Marvel had that. Like Iron Man 1 has that. It's got big character arc and changes, and you see Tony Stark changes to a person. And this is a flaw, but I know why they did it. Tony Stark's character arc doesn't end until Endgame. So you've got to go through like 10 films to see this guy finally understand what a hero is. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I get it, you were trying to drag it out, but God, come on, guys. Like, Snyder did in 3 movies what it took them to do in 10. And I know why they did it in 10 is because they wanted more money, which is what they're doing now with Gunn. They're gonna lower all the expectations, and they're gonna stretch it out so they can make money for 10 years.
Yep. And by doing that, take away the promise we had of the 5-film arc, inevitably ending with the greatest Batman of all time, Ben Affleck Batman, sacrificing himself for humanity.
Yep.
You know,
and I saw this on social media today, and someone made this great point, because Snyder fans are really good at what they do. And one of them was in Batman v Superman, it starts with like Bruce becoming the Batman at his father's grave and his mother's grave. And then it ends with him birthing the Justice League at Superman's grave.
Dude.
And that,
that's the kind of crap I'm talking about right there. It's like, there's so many levels, and out to the Snyder fans' credit, man. Like, I'm in these groups every day, and they're tearing it apart scene by scene.
Yep.
There's that one scene where Batman and Superman are fighting, and he hit him with the gas, the kryptonite gas. And he's like, "You're not even a god. You're just a man." And he's like beating the crap out of him, but then all of a sudden it starts to wear off, and he throws his hand up. And if you watch it frame by frame by frame, his hand, he's not like backing up, like, "Oh no, don't hurt me."
Preparing.
He's pulling his gun out, and as Superman grabs him, he's got the gun, getting ready to gas him a second time.
It's a distraction.
Yes, and it's just stuff like that where it's like watching these films and getting them, just breaking it all down. Everything had meaning, everything had purpose, and it's just And I like the Marvel films when it comes to a popcorn action film that's good.
Yeah.
But I just don't see the depth. And I understand that that's a mass appeal thing versus a very, and if you look at us, the Marvel fans versus the Snyder fans, we look like crazy people every day.
Yeah, well, everybody's a Marvel fan and Star Wars fan now. So
Right.
to me, that means no one really is.
And, well, I mean, you know, it's no longer nerd culture anymore. It's just culture.
Yeah,
you know?
you don't have to be a fan. People have forgotten that fan means fanatical. When it's casual, you're not a fan. And I'm saying that as a guy who talks to you on video games. I'm a casual video game guy. You know how I know? Because I've heard Darrell talk about video games. I don't compare. So just admit, like, you can just say you're not a fan. You can just be like, I like it. But a fan is fanatical.
Yeah, that's somebody like me who watches Batman vs Superman 100 times a year. It's
Well,
like, dude.
Well, that's what hurt. That's what hurt my feelings so much about Black Adam was that this is the perfect archetype for DC depth and Marvel popcorn. I can put it on and watch it like that and get something out of it, or I can just put it on and watch them bash each other like Dragon Ball Z. I thought it was the perfect start for like a second part of the universe.
Mm-hmm. And then they're doing away with it. They're not. It's not in the D, which is so crazy. And this is what doesn't make sense to me. And I guess it's got to play out to if it's going to make sense, assuming it will. So we're still getting Shazam: Fury of the Gods.
Yeah, which I love Shazam. Shazam's a great movie.
Right, but we're not getting Black Adam in there.
No.
Okay.
Or Superman.
Or Superman, yeah. We are still getting The Flash, which is going to reboot the DCU, but then Aquaman's going to come after that?
Yeah.
So some of it's going to be rebooted, not all of it. You don't even have to read between the lines on that one. It's like, this will reboot. By the way, Aquaman 2.
Do you know the kind of money they could have had if they'd have kept the Snyderverse and put out Aquaman 2 before the Amber Heard trial?
Mm-hmm.
Before because look, people who saw Aquaman were women. Women do not want to see a woman they hate in a movie.
Right.
If they go, I mean, I'm not trying to be like a sexist here, but I'm saying like you want to turn people off. She either needs to die, that makes them get a cathartic release, or just release it before it happened. That thing could have made a ridiculous amount of money,
another billion,
like or more, because you had the first one to go off with. Like the first one was astoundingly surprising as a blockbuster. But then you take Jason Momoa shirtless too,
which. It was a good movie too, you know. Like I enjoyed Aquaman. I thought
I've never seen it, but I need to see it.
You should watch it. If you like Black Adam, you'll like Aquaman. It's Jason Momoa shirtless, but like also Nicole Kidman fighting. Awesome.
Nice.
Is it Nicole Kidman? Not Nicole. Either way, his mom. She's awesome. But the whole battle between him and his brother introducing Black Manta. Black Manta was awesome.
I do love Black Manta as a character.
Dude, it was cool. And then the set pieces were so uncharted because it's like, this is supposed to be underwater. But by the way, we go to the desert and we had this giant battle in the desert. Why? Because why not? You know,
Aquaman can battle in the desert, unlike Namor, apparently.
Right. Who has to stay underwater and ride a fish. So it's good. It's really, really good. It's a good movie. And that was the thing. It's like, okay, so BVS was controversial. And didn't make $1 billion, even though it was projected to make $1 billion.
It made almost.
Right. It was 890 something million or whatever. Mm-hmm. And by now, I've bought it enough times to put them over the billion mark. But then you had the Justice League debacle. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then you had the Suicide Squad debacle. Now, both mega debacles, right? David Ayer says that's not even his movie. Like what the movie he made is different. And he just even recently said, guys, I'm telling you, my movie was a good movie. So then we make it to Aquaman. Aquaman still blows $1 billion out. All right. Mm-hmm. Wonder Woman was close. You know, Wonder Woman 84.
The first one was good.
Wonder Woman was a bad movie. That was a terrible movie.
Yeah, 84 was bad.
84 was, that meme where she's like, it's like, he's like, but that's just a trash can. Yeah, that's your movie. That was your movie in a nutshell. Like, there were some good pieces in there, but the connective tissue was gone. You blew out your fascia before you even started. That was a terrible movie. But like they could have still had a successful universe, you know? Mm-hmm. And they could have when they rebooted and they say, or I say reboot, it wasn't a real reboot, but when they released the Snyder Cut, that could have been their time to say, we're going to finish what we started end it with the Flash, reboot the whole series, bring in James Gunn for phase 2.
How much money do you think a Raid-style Deathstroke movie would have made? See, doesn't that just get you excited thinking of that?
Yeah.
Like, or Deathstroke versus Batman, like we were promised.
Yeah. Directed by Ben Affleck.
Mm-hmm.
Like written.
It'd have been like The Town on steroids.
Yes. Or one step farther, we could have had Phantoms. Ben Affleck was the bomb in Phantoms.
We could have. I mean, I can't imagine. I don't know. I guess DC doesn't like money, or they're like most giant corporations where they're just clueless. Like,
it's completely clueless because you wouldn't have got involved and messed things up the way they did. They brought Avengers talent in, hoping to turn the Justice League into the Avengers, and they didn't. And it's not the same. You watch those movies side by side; they're not the same. Now, I will say that opening scene of Batman in the Joss Whedon Justice League, where he, fights the parademon and he ropes that dude up, and he's like, "What are you doing?" Fear. that whole section was cool. It was very much like what I wanted out of more Batman.
Yeah.
But it had like a Tim Burton feel to it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like a little, like this isn't the Batfleck that like tried to kill Superman, but this is like the Batfleck that's, by the way, Michael Keaton, it existed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because roping a dope and hanging him off the side of a building for a parademon to grab him.
Yeah.
Questionable tactics, but I liked it. And then you flip it over to the movie we actually got, which was the Zack Snyder Justice League. And I think it's very, very well done. And it's like, okay, why, like what makes less sense than scrapping it is putting it out and doing nothing with it.
Yep.
Like, it's like if there was a playbook of boneheaded decisions, they're going A to Z and they're committed.
That's the thing. You think they would learn, which I guess hubris will do that to you. You think like, hey, when we got involved in Suicide Squad, it sucked. We had to redo it. Hey, when we got involved in Justice League, it sucked. We had to redo it. Like, at what point do you go, maybe we should stop having to redo things because we do them right the first time?
Mm-hmm.
But
and the thing is, this is like what means more to you as a person, as a man, right? If I tell you I'm going to do something, and then I never do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Or if I say I'm going to do something and I do it, and maybe I don't do the best job in the world, but I was a man of my word and I did it. Like that, it to me means more than this whole start, stop, reboot. Oh, we're going to reboot. Oh, here's our 10-year plan. Here's our Armada 10-year plan. Here's our James Gunn 10-year plan. Here's our. At this point, they're just going to give it to Tom King next, and it's like, hey, what do you want to do? Bat and the Cat romance novels? Let's do this.
He'll just have Batman tied up for 3 movies while Catwoman does everything.
Bones everybody.
Yeah. It'll just be 50 Shades of Grey, except the roles are reversed and it's Catwoman as the main guy. But I mean, that's how a lot of those dudes are right, man. It's a complete disrespect of the source material, the characters, and then you hand it to people who aren't competent enough to do it, or too arrogant to do it correctly. And I don't know, it hurts to talk about what might have been when it's like, dude, Zack Snyder is still killing it. Like he put something out I didn't like. Well, the last movie, Army of the Dead or whatever, I don't remember the title of it. I didn't like it, but it still did fantastic. And I watched it because it's Zack Snyder. I'll watch anything he puts out, even if I don't like it. I'll at least watch it once.
That was the one with Batista in it, right?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that yet.
I didn't care for it. But, I mean, at least looked better.
Netflix. Yeah, I cut Netflix off after Cuties, and I never went back.
Oh, well, I don't pay for it, so I don't have to deal with that whole moral...
You don't have to have that moral dilemma.
I don't blame you. Cuties that's a whole travesty unto itself, where it's like, you guys really will do anything for $1, won't you?
That was one of those things to where I know you can't live a completely moralistic life, and any money to a corporation is bad money, it's dirty money.
Mm-hmm.
But there are certain points in time where people have just drew the line so clearly, or like, I can't in good conscience cross that, And,
like sometimes you walk around a corner and there's a golden calf, and you're like, I've got to turn around. This one, I can't be in this country.
That was the one time where I'm like, I cannot just I can't do it. I was like, you guys don't have my money anymore. And I wrote in and I told him, I said, hey, I cannot contribute to pedophilia bait.
Yep.
And I'm out. And that was my email.
I don't care how French it's supposed to be.
Yeah. I also, you know what? I also would pull my support specifically because it's French. So even if it wasn't. So the only thing French I like is French fries.
Yeah, that's about it.
And those are American. So they're
we improved France.
But yeah, so I pulled out on that one. So unfortunately, even Zack Snyder's not immune.
Yes.
This whole Rebel Moon thing coming up, man, I want to see it.
Yeah.
And there's this whole campaign that the Snyderverse is doing. Franchise the Snyderverse to Netflix. I'm like, guys, please, let's not go that far.
I don't know why they wouldn't just do it HBO.
I mean, keep it in house. Just do it Elseworlds. But to be fair, to his credit, because I'm a big James Gunn hater, he said everything outside of what I'm doing is Elseworlds, and it'll be labeled that. And I'm like, dude, the Elseworlds stuff is really good. Give us all that. Give us a Man Bat. Give us a Man Bat Elseworlds. Give us a freaking horror movie about a real dude dressed as a bat. Now
that would be cool as a Batman 2 story. Man Bat.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you made it kind of like the animated one where it was like the guy's wife. Actually, I forgot the scientist's name, but it was actually his wife the whole time. That was a cool twist,
dude. If we could get a Mask of the Phantasm in that's
what I was hoping. If we get Andrea Beaumont, and see, you could tie that in with the Court of Owls and other kinds of stuff. You know, high society, and she's trying to kill them and take them down. You could put all of that together.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, man. I hope we don't get Mr. Freeze. I really don't want to see Mr. Freeze.
Everybody kill.
Everybody's like, oh, it ended with a flood, so let's get Mr. Freeze. Like, dude, the water's not going to be there. I don't know if you know this, but water doesn't just stay in places, and like it tends to go places.
Yeah.
It's like,
at the end they did the whole ride off into the sunset.
Yep.
It already dried up.
Yeah, it's like I'm pretty sure the city will have that cleared out in like a week. They'll have to like clear out the rest of it, but the water will be gone.
Now, what they could do, which I thought was very cool, is in the Spider-Man Homecoming, where they had like the aftermath of the invasions and stuff, and it's like, oh man, we got all this tech and all this stuff, and now we've got this whole black market of this, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, in the aftermath of the flood, now we could have all of these other things come to the surface, like, so in the aftermath of the flood, maybe these high society, these people that have been in the background, it's like, no, we got to get more involved because you almost just blew up what we've been working for hundreds of years to protect, so we could get the court to start showing their faces a little bit. It's like, now it's time to start attacking both sides, because you went crazy. You freaking blew up my city, We've been doing this thing for 300 years now. We ain't blowing up a single city.
Well, that's I think that's what they could have done was, I don't know why they wouldn't have had the Riddler, trying to go against the Court of Owls and that whole thing, because like knowing enough to know that it doesn't matter who's elected. That's my thing. That's my biggest problem with the Batman was the girl that her last name was a Real or whatever, the senator or the mayor elect or whatever. I think what they should have done is gone full Chinatown noir with it, and should have had a scene where Batman finds out she's compromised as well, and prove the Riddler right. Like, no, like someone is pulling all the strings, even when you think what I'm looking for. They always like controlled opposition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing it could have needed to really dive into that. The world needs Batman.
Yeah. We'll see. And then they what they did do is they showed that the Joker exists in this. And then there's like, so you would think year one was him and the Joker. And then that deleted scene with him and the Joker, which was so good. That was a really good scene. That was actually, should have been in the movie. I thought it was better than what we got. But I spy with my little eye. I'm like, oh gosh. but now, so we know those two exist. We know the Penguin exists. Penguin's getting his own show, which I think is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So it's like, who's next? Because I don't know they're going to do a Joker story next.
I hope not. We've had enough of the Joker.
And they showed Falcone. So it's like we're seeing a lot of big players, but You know, I don't want Two-Face again. I don't want Mr. Freeze again. Like, I want something, like you were saying, if it's not the Court, I want something weird. Like, I want something super, almost horrific and supernatural. I want Man-Bat. You know, Clayface only if he's like monstrous. I don't want Harley Quinn animated series Clayface.
No, it's like a joke.
I mean, again, that's a effeminate joke, and that's the problem. We keep we get a lot of that now. There's a lot of this stuff where they just cut the legs out from even
you get the feminine while subverting masculine power.
Also incompetent.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like, masculine competence and power. It has to be leveled down.
It's almost like they can't give an effeminate character that's also intelligent and cunning. It's like, here's, not only are we going with the effeminate nature, but we're also going to make it dumb as a brick. So
someone pointed out it was like they don't even know how to write gay characters except going back to like 90s Will and Grace for some reason. Like it's always a caricature. It's always, quite frankly, offensive, because I mean, we all know gay people and they're just as different a spectrum as every single person on the planet. No one is a stereotype or a caricature. Right. And I don't know why, I guess Hollywood is defaulting back to the effeminate ditzy gay guy from the 90s. Who's so shallow.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what
they've never met people before.
It just seems like they're siloed off. It's like they have no idea what's going on. Like, you can do all those things and still write it well, but it's no.
A David Bowie-esque Clayface could be cool, especially if he assumes that kind of trim, kind of androgynous posture, and then the opposite side is he's like the size of Bane and he's huge. I mean, that's the whole thing. He's an actor. They really go and embody the old school, like, Greco-Roman idea of an actor, and like, really, like I said, an androgyny, kind of like a muse. But you could do all kinds of cool stuff with that.
You really could, yeah. I didn't even think about that when you said Prince earlier too. That's like, man, that he just was whatever he wanted to be.
Well, that's a whole other conversation, man. But like, with all the gender stuff, it seems like we've gone back, like, since before that, because we had these guys who were artists that knew how to incorporate the male and feminine, and they could do it perfectly. I mean, and I like Tilda Swinton because she can do that. Like, when she was Gabriel in Constantine, I was like, I've never seen a more perfect casting for anything ever. I was like, okay, she looks like an old angel painting of kind of like this androgynous with male power and female, like, wild.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you should have. You could cast her as Clayface if she were younger, and make her play a man. I would be fine with that.
You know what? You just nailed something that I never even thought of. When that movie Constantine came out, she played that role so well, and it wasn't you weren't like plastered with the fact that here's a woman playing a man's role.
I thought it was a man for half the movie. I had my brain literally was going back and forth.
But it was just well done. It was just well done. It made sense, and it was written well. They didn't address the fact that it was anything, and there was no press, like, blitz that came out. I was like, by the way, here's this man character that's really a woman, a birthing person. She even lactates.
The best movie to do that recently, if you hadn't seen it, is Tar. And it looks, the trailer looks awful. It looks pretentious. It's a Kate Blanchett playing a composer who's kind of like a Harvey Weinstein character by the end.
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah,
it is fantastic, dude. I don't like high society, what I would call douchey Oscar bait. Yeah. This movie is fantastic, and she plays the role of masculine energy to a T perfectly to showcase that this kind of, I hate to use the word toxic masculine behavior, it's not limited to one sex. And she does it super well, and like, she plays this role of being able to switch back and forth between those two. Man, it's really good. But yeah, an example of that, which, like I said, I would love to have a character like that play Clayface, and it be, because Clayface's ego is his whole thing, and he was he was a masterful actor and all this kind of stuff, and just make him the ultimate archetype of an actor, which is a borderline mystical muse character that can embody the male and feminine and switch instantly. Dude. If you could get a, what's his name, the Skarsgård, the guy that played Pennywise, I bet you he could do it. If he lost some weight and got like a little bit thinner, I bet you that dude could turn it on left and right and kill it. Anyway, not to go off on a tangent, but that's the Clayface I would like to see.
Now, you know what you just did? You just sold me on Matt Reeves Clayface. Like, dude, I'm like, and my mind is going now. I'm like, oh, wow, you know what? That's a really good idea. And that would fit in that universe too, because it wouldn't necessarily be something so different. It could be almost like a shapeshifter, you know, and you could be whatever you wanted it to be.
Yeah, and especially if they made that part of his character where, like, you know, he's lost himself. And that's the whole thing with Clayface, you know. Like, well, all this that I'm saying comes from the animated series because they did Clayface better than any of the comics did. And yeah, if you really, I'm not trying to go off, man, but like this is what Snyder did though, which I hope Reeves will do, and other people do. Snyder captured old school, bigger than human myths and archetypes. And he had the characters aspire to them instead of what Gunn does, which is bring them down to the petty human level. And that's if you can do that, people will love it forever.
That's interesting. I like it, dude. I like it. You sold me on. You know,
now you're gonna be mad when you don't get it.
No, I know. I'm gonna get freaking Calendar Man, and he's. We're like, oh God, I hate that date.
Groundhog Day.
Again.
They'll probably get Bill Murray to play him too.
Hey. It's Groundhog Day.
Just so they can have one Groundhog Day joke where he looks at the camera and says, "It's Groundhog Day again."
Oh my gosh, that would be cool. You got Bill Murray walking down the street.
Yep.
That's awesome. Wait.
Yeah.
Dan, I mean, I don't know what kind of time you got. I mean, we've been running for an hour now. Are you good? Or
I got like maybe another minute for you to finish your thought and finish mine. But yeah, I need to run just a little bit. But I enjoy talking with you, man. This took a left turn in the best way.
It really did. What's funny is I did a podcast with a friend of mine yesterday, as of the time of this recording, and we talked about The Last of Us episode 3.
Yeah.
And that brought on all that stuff. And it's just kind of locked and loaded in my mind because I'm like, you know, there's good writing, there's bad writing. And you can take a character that maybe doesn't appeal to everybody. Yeah. And as long as you flesh it out correctly, it'll work, you know?
Can I start calling him Nick Onaman now?
It's so funny. My buddy Tricky, he made a joke because I said I had a big problem with the episode because of the way it got started, not the way it fleshed out and the way it worked in the end. It was fine. But like the way it was like, wait a second. Homeboy has an underground bunker. Okay. He's got an arsenal. He built a compound around his house and neighborhood. Okay. You mean to tell me the first dude that falls in his hole
is falling in his hole?
He takes him home and falls in their hole. I was just like, I know what they were trying to do. They were trying to get from point A to point B so they could tell their story together. But I was just like, this is the kind of stuff that frustrates me because it's like, you could have done a time lapse. You could have done there's a lot of ways they could have done it, but like they went out of their way to spend so much time. And I know I'm harping on this again. My audience is really they're going to unsubscribe to everything I do, but it's like you spent so much time showing us that he was a survivalist, extremist. Okay. He's this grizzled human that like wants to be alone and it goes all out of his way. But within the first 30 seconds of meeting another human being, he invites them in his house. He lets them go by themselves, take a bath, feeds them, then turns his back to them to play the piano and sing to them. And then also bangs them, which is a whole nother.
And it's like, again, like it's not that he's gay that has anything against the survivalists, that there are a ton of gay guys that are way more masculine than I am. Easily. It's that he's like you just said, this guy is letting someone in, and that person is a man, which is a bigger threat than if it were a woman.
Should have been.
Yeah. And it's like, and it just seems cheap to be like, oh, it's because he's gay. It's like, I know, but he's also rational and smart. Like
yes. And that is the thing. And you actually have explained it better than I did yesterday on the episode, because it's like, what I'm trying to say is, wait a second, you set a set of rules and standards like an archetype, and then you undid them so that you can tell your romance story, you know?
What you're saying is this man can't think past his sexual drive. And And not to go into it and do the whole culture thing, but you're saying it's kind of like, are you saying that because he's gay, he can't control it? Like that,
Right.
that
It
sounds
was a
like
whole
you're cheapening his gayness as a character. Than
exactly. Exactly. It's like you want to tell this so bad that you're willing to break your own rules to get there.
You can have
And
him be a survivalist, super hardcore guy, and be gay. Just tell it better.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. You just that sums up my entire thoughts on at
Yeah.
least the first 20 minutes of the episode. After
Yeah.
that, it's whatever. You got there. And then they told the story. They were together. Now they do break the rules again because and I don't even know why, because they shoot him. He's standing. He's so smart. He's done all these things.
Yep.
But when the crap finally hits the fan, he goes and grabs a shotgun and stands in the middle of the road and just fires off aimlessly.
That's what I haven't seen it, but that's the complaint I heard too. It's like people were like, "That's not." Like, did they at least explain it? Like, was his like husband killed and he was angry?
No,
Like,
no,
okay.
no. The thing is, this is like.
Or anything then.
Yeah, it was just like there was no, because like all of a sudden the dude can then dress wounds and it was almost like you took care of me, so I'm taking care of you. That's what they were trying to get across. But like, wait a minute, you broke the rules, because the same guy who has an underground bunker, who was hiding out from the military, who has all these crazy weapons on his wall that you go out of your way to pan over and show, didn't go to the top of his house, take cover, wear body armor, and fire up
with a proper rifle.
Yes. Not only that, but like you got a line of raiders outside. You got bombs going off, and you got automated flamethrowers shooting at him. And he even says, while he's bleeding out on the table, he goes, "Don't worry about it. The flamethrowers will take the rest of them." What the freak were you out there for? Like, why were you even out there?
It's not to be like a jerk here or to bring up tragic events, but I mean, you remember, like, was it in Florence, South Carolina? It was a tragedy, but recently one crazy guy with a gun held off an entire police force for hours, and ended up unfortunately killing like 2 or 3 people, or at least one person. But trained Marines and Army Rangers will tell you that one well-trained sniper can hold off an entire like platoon almost if he's in the right place. And this guy didn't think like to do that.
And that is what I was trying to get across in my episode, is that you set the stage and you broke the rules because you wanted the romance and you needed to get from point A to point B, and it could have been done better. And I'm not saying it was total garbage, but what I am saying is Hollywood's infatuation with intimacy and romance and sex, and I'm not talking about gay or straight, I'm talking about in general. It clouds their judgment on good storytelling. And I said in this same episode, and I stand by this, you don't need any of that to tell your story. At least you don't have to show it. You can imply it. You can. The strongest points of the episode weren't even the places that they fell short. It was the places, or it was in the places they were the most extreme either. It was the subtleties in their conversations, the way that they interacted with other people. And at the end of the day, they ended with a Romeo and Juliet style double suicide, which I have a theory about. You have to listen to the Patreon episodes to find out. But like at the end of the day, the best parts of that whole story and being told were not the rule breaking that they did trying to tell their story, or the extreme romance and intimacy parts that they showed. It was the subtleties in between, and that's always what's the best storytelling. Hollywood
and many corporations now will use the bludgeon of calling the fans prejudice to cover up their bad writing.
100%.
So they'll say you don't like it because they were gay. It's like, no one cares that they were gay. I think if you're going to pick anybody, Nick Offerman is a great dude. Is another character that can actually pick male and like feminine traits very well, especially for a super masculine dude. Yeah. Like if you just listen to him talk and act outside of Parks and Recs, outside of Ron Swanson, that dude's a fantastic actor. But like in The Founder, the McDonald's movie, he plays like this kind of hard kind of brother guy, but he's instantly subdued by like his brother's like disease and stuff, and he's instantly like in a more subservient kind of role. And it's like that dude can switch instantly. So I think that if you're going to have a guy that's supposed to be a gay survivalist, that's the best guy to do it. But all that to say is like that you just said, like, no one's mad that this character is gay. They're mad that you crapped on the character.
Right. And to be fair, they did a good job with so much of it, but it was, even at, in my opinion, Hollywood's best, they can't get out of their own way.
No.
And it's because they're just so drawn to, we have to show sexuality. We have to push sexuality. Like, look how sexual we are. And it's like, and I'm reading all these articles and stuff, and everybody's like, oh, the love, the romance, it was so well. You're just going to cry. You're going to cry. And I'm like, yeah, you did so many things right, but you still, even the best of you are still so hyper focused on the sexuality that you broke your own rules to tell the story. And, you know, it could have been better. That's all I'm saying. It could have been better. And I just hope, I'm rounding it all back out, I hope that someone who's notorious for falling into these traps,
for being raunchy,
I just hope they, I mean, like, you know, James Gunn doesn't do that here.
You know what? I'm gonna run with that. I think it's a maybe Hollywood and the higher up, it's like a money thing, like sex sells. But I don't think it's that, because a lot of writers are like infants now, and they're like children. And maybe that's how I should explain it. Like, it's not that they even feminize men; they infantilize men.
Okay.
And it's like this thing. Like, I forgot who was it. There was like the recent joke like a year or two ago where they wanted to have like a Batman, I'm trying to say this delicately, perform cunnilingus on Catwoman, and they got mad that DC was like, Batman doesn't do that, and they turned into this whole joke, went on this whole media thing with it, instead of just being like, what they meant was, we have a standard for how like stuff, especially sexuality, is portrayed with Batman. But you want to make everything your like kiddie play. Like, a guy put this really well, where he's like, the entire comic book industry now is the little sister making the older brother's action figures at a tea party.
Yeah. Yes.
That's what it is. It's all like what it's this hyper fixation on sexuality, and particularly like a female form of sexuality, or at least what they would consider a non-masculine one.
Right.
Which I don't see. I mean, I'm going to go on credit. The internet can laugh at me. I don't see how homosexuality is a non-masculine form of sexuality, because it involves two men. It's like
arguably the most masculine.
Well, there are some feminists and psychologists that actually argue that they were like homosexual men are hyper masculine because that's the most masculine traits. Going over anyway. All that to say, I think you're 100% right. I think that they had this weird fixation with like this soap opera-ness, instead of just telling great mythological stories.
And this brings me to my final point.
Yeah.
You would think I would like anime because it's all about screaming and punching each other.
Yeah, that's all of anime. That's all.
It's like, I'm over here in my head. I'm like, everything that has drawn me to like, you know what I'm saying? Like I got into comic books and I got into action and all this. I got into comic books and stuff because I like the action. I got into comic books and these superheroes because I like to see larger than life things scream and punch each other. And then now it's just taken this dive across all of media where it's like, it's very dramatic. It's all very dramatic, you know. Even some of my favorite stuff, like Snyderverse, is very dramatic. Yeah. And I'm over here going, I don't like anime. I'm like, you know what? Every time I see something, they're screaming and punching each other. That maybe I should just go over there and go play in that sandbox.
Well, you know what's funny? There's no overt sexuality in all of Snyderverse.
No, I know.
Yeah.
There is the only sexuality in the Snyderverse is where Lois and Clark get in the tub and it fades to black. Mm-hmm. And again, everything you need to know is in those scenes.
Yep.
She doesn't show a ton of her body. Mm-hmm. Everything is completely modest and keeps her, you know what I'm saying? Like, you understand what's happening. And then their conversation and his care and concern for her is what sparks their intimacy. Mm-hmm. Fade to black. Yep. And it wasn't that it was like, oh, dang, my chick's naked. I got to get naked. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like, oh, let's then now show them, you know. But I will argue, though, Zack Snyder has shown the opposite in The Watchmen. Yeah. Well, he didn't write that. Okay. Well, there you go. Because that was, my wife and I watched that together. And this, okay, listeners, you got to take this and our Patreon episode, The Last of Us, to episode 3 and put it together because it brings everything full circle. Yeah. My wife and I watched The Watchmen together. And when those two are banging what seems like for 25 minutes, we were just like, why is this happening? What do we do right now? You know, like we're just sitting there watching people spit in each other's mouths and sweat on each other and God only knows what. And we're like,
I guess what I'm saying is he didn't write the comic, and he could have he probably could have shown some restraint there. But I mean, I got you. And 300 had a little bit of a, but at least it seemed intimate. It didn't seem like gratuitous.
Yeah, I mean, and then even then with 300 with the Spartans and all that stuff, that very much was a gratuitous time. Like especially when in all the imagery with Xerxes and his people.
Great movie.
If there was ever a time to be gratuitous, that would have warranted it. And I feel like it was somewhat restrained there. Again, I'm not saying Zack Snyder's perfect, but to your point, the Snyderverse did show restraint in its entirety in all 3 films. And it could have been whatever. It could have been like the Suicide Squad, James Gunn, just some random person with their dong hanging out, just running out of a little hut just to get shot. Like, look at that guy. That's a man. Let's see his wiener is dead. I don't know why.
No, I'm just with you. I just think it sounds pretentious. I think unless it changes drastically, I think Gunn is just juvenile. And that's a really like douchey term because I laugh at the worst jokes imaginable.
For coming from a fellow juvenile, I think that I can agree with you. And I'll just say this. I'll end with this is my last piece with James Gunn because I think the longer we talk, the more we kind of reveal. Yeah,
we're gonna come up with more stuff.
We hate this, but we also still love it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we love, we hate, we love. I am a very juvenile as well. I mean, I make That's What She Said and wiener jokes. That's how I got into podcasting altogether. The only reason anyone listens to my nonsense is because occasionally I'll go, that's what she said. And so, you know what I'm saying? I get that. I understand being juvenile. But I'm also not a director. I'm also not in charge of this precious IP. I'm just a freaking fat bald guy who sits in front of his computer and talks about comics and video games. So, you know what I'm saying? Like this. Yeah. If it was me, maybe I would still do the same. Maybe I'd be James Gunn. Everybody would hate me. I'd be like, what's going on, guys? Don't you love this? Are you not entertained?
Yeah, I'll let you go. I need to talk with you for just a second once we cut off the official stream. So it's now a good time to do that.
That's fine. We'll go ahead and end it right here. This is Resident Darrell from Loot Bros Podcast. This is Dan Evans from the Godfo universe coming at you. Not technically live because this is pre-recorded in a bunker.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan, for allowing me to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
You are here because the outside world rejects you. This is your family. I am your father.
Who was staring back at you? You wish the image was clearer. Always remember who you are. Why would you stop now when you come this far? What do you see when you look in the mirror? Who was staring back at you? You wish the image was clearer. In a life this hard, you've come so far. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. How do you feel when you look at yourself? When is the last time you was even real with yourself? You used to stand for so much, have a firm grasp, now you've gotten out of touch. I just wanna spit a little bit for the lost and I heard everything that I say, you can use it every day. Never let nobody ever hold you down in a world full of lies where the truth's not found. And sink or swim, you make your choice, open your mouth and use your voice. You come so far, no turn back now, you are loved without a doubt. I see the pain and all the hurt, I know the struggle's real. A broken heart full of pain seems like it never heals. Don't quit, this is it, you gotta move on. Check yourself before you wind up all alone. What do you see when you look in the mirror? Who was staring back at you? You wish the image was clearer. Always remember who you are. Why would you stop now when you come this far? What do you see when you look in the mirror? Who was staring back at you? You wish the image was clearer. In a life this hard, you've come so far. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. I don't need a drum beat to get my point across. You don't remember who you are, just think about the cross. I'm at a loss to know that we have come so far, but half of us don't even have a clue who we are. You were chosen to live a life that you take for granted, yet you still wonder why you come up empty-handed. A seed is planted, you don't want to rich, you let it gonna put